This is KC Sports Tonight.
So you don't like what I'm saying, and you cut us off.
Welcome into KC Sports Tonight again. I think our computer rejected whatever Neal was about to say and crashed, but we are back.
Okay, well, I want to get – so I have to go out and cover training camp, and you're dressed up like you're going to go to some formal occasion, which maybe that's what you're doing. So I want to know right now, we're supposed to shoot a promo in the parking lot at Arrowhead Stadium, and I tell people if you're going to be out there Saturday before the game at Arrowhead Stadium, come find us, and you'll be in a promo that will live forever, even after I'm fired. It'll probably still run. But I want to know, are you going to be glamorous? Or because I'm going to show up in a golf shirt and shorts, and you're going to be dressed up. Is that what's going to happen?
So I don't know, because I asked you before this. I said, what are you wearing? Because I feel like we should match. But now I'm kind of nervous you're going to tell me you're not dressing up, and then you're going to show out in a full tux, and I'm the one that looks underdressed. I don't know. It's a lose-lose.
I'm going to come in a burlap sack. You don't need to worry about it. Just dress down, and then I'll have a suit on.
Great.
Great.
I've
got these great Italian suits. And I would tell you where I get them, except I think that's called payola, so I can't do it.
Okay.
But they're really good Italian suits.
I'll show up in a potato sack, as you told me to, and then we'll see.
Look, you're like 6'4". You could wear a potato sack probably. Trust me, at my age.
Let's not test it out, shall we? Okay. We're going to start the show here, finally, with training camp wrapping up today.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about training camp.
Yeah, I know. This is brand new. We haven't talked about this yet. This actually is new, though, because today was the final day of training camp. Neal, a lot of people are saying, oh my gosh, this went by so quickly. I have a feeling you don't feel that way, but I'm curious your thoughts on just collectively 2024 Chiefs training camp up in St. Joe.
There were a number of us who were crying today, partly fans and media members who were sad that camp is leaving. They like St. Joe.
Okay.
And partly media members and fans who were crying because it couldn't have ended early enough. I enjoy it. I don't like the drive, but I've been lucky. All the years we've driven up there, I don't know how many trips that is, but it's an hour up and an hour back from my house, and which is where I drive from usually. With all this equipment, you're driving up, and then you get there. You've been in the car for an hour. You carry all the equipment up the hill, and then you set up, and that's when you start working. I mean, it's like you have to – so I miss River Falls in that regard because you stayed up there for 2 weeks. You worked for pretty much straight for 2 weeks, except for when you'd slip away and play golf in the mornings occasionally. But at least you were up there. You know what I mean? And that drive, I don't know how many hours. I'm depressed to think about.
You and I spent way too many hours in the car together these last couple of
Well, not that much. I mean, I only heard about like 4 or 5 years of your dating life. Okay. That's the only part I really remember. But here's the deal. I love it. Because we have more access. We get to hear from Andy Reid a couple of times. I think that because we're not talking about games, they're much more likely to kind of give you what I don't think we're playing very well, or I think we're playing pretty well, because it doesn't really. It doesn't help the opposition at that point. Mm-hmm. The only thing they don't really want to tell you a lot about is injuries, for obvious reasons. But I enjoy training camp. You get to shoot practice. We don't get to shoot practice. And so I'm going to be shooting the game on Saturday, and typically that's been a horrible game. It's been really, really hot. An afternoon game. They always play it on afternoon. I think the coaches like it to get it done, and they can break down the tape and get after them the next day. But for the fans, I mean, the fans are broiling usually, and and Andy Reid says, well, the starters are going to play a half. They're not going to play a half if they're good. If they come out and have a couple of touchdown drives, they're going to be done. Yeah, I would think, because you get them out of there. You don't want people hurt. And so the only things that can happen in preseason games are bad things. Guys get hurt, stuff like that. If someone plays well, you're like, well, great, they played well in a preseason game. Yeah. At least we know the Lions are good this year. Last year we had no idea they were good when they came to Arrowhead Stadium. So that part will be interesting.
Yeah. What is this, the 13th, 14th year training camp has been up in St. Joe? I want to say 14.
I think it was, I think it's 13th, because I think 1 year they didn't have training camp, the COVID year.
You're right. Yeah. Okay,
where were you during COVID? Were you still in college?
No, I was. I had accepted the sports director job at WIBW, our sister station in Topeka, in February of 2020, and then, we know what happens after that.
So when you show up on the scene, everything falls apart. The pandemic hits.
Yeah,
you're like pandemic Pam. I mean,
but 14th year calendar year, 13th year up in St. Joe. Andy Reid said today this is like maybe the first year he can remember where they haven't been rained out any days. Weather was nice.
Right. It rained a couple of days, but they were able to practice through it.
Yep.
And he loves that. He loves the only time they've ever gone in because of rain has been is lightning. That's the only reason, because he wants his teams to play in different conditions. I think that there've been times, and I can't remember if this happened with Andy Reid, but I know with Marty Schottenheimer, I've been told that at times they would water the football down and throw it around a little bit. I'd love to, you know what? I'd love to talk to some of the older players to find out if that was an old wives' tale or if Marty actually did that, because they wanted to play in the conditions.
Yeah, that's a mystery I'm sure we can solve. Real quick before we move on to kind of the X's and O's of camp, Military Appreciation Day was today. I know you've been to a number of these now. Just how special is that, and what was kind of the mood like up at camp today?
Well, the people are what make that story real.
Yeah.
You know, people in uniforms and everything. When I've been up covering the practice and they have it during a regular practice, I might go back and interview one or two military people who they bring to us, and we interview them, and that's it. I might walk around and get some shots of them. That's it. Well, today, since we had two crews up there, Mark Palos was covering the actual practice and stuff, and they weren't able to shoot very much because it was the last practice of before a game, and so it's real short anyway. I got to walk around and really meet people, and some of the guys came up who I'd met years past, and they introduced me to a gentleman who lives about a mile from me, and his son graduated the same year as my daughter from high school. His son went to Blue Valley Southwest. My daughter went to Blue Valley Northwest. She went off to KU and just graduated from college. Well, his son's dream was to be a Marine. His dad was a Navy pilot for 20 years, and so the son wanted to follow in his dad's footsteps, I assume, and went into the United States Marine Corps. Well, his son was killed in February in a helicopter crash while serving with the Marines. And some of his friends said, you really need to interview this guy. He's a great guy. He's had a really hard time. He's really proud of his son. And so I had a chance to interview him, and he was kind enough to text me some pictures of his son. And let me tell you something. To me, I love sports heroes. I love sports. I really do love sports heroes. But there's two levels of heroes in the world. First responders who save people's lives, who come in when you're sick or when something bad happens, and they come in and help you and your family out. And there are a lot of those people around. But then also the people who put on the uniform. Your father was a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army,
22 years,
and had a very distinguished career. I have so much respect for him and fear. And the fact is, to me, those people are on a whole different level. I love military history, and so I'm very much aware. In fact, one of the guys from Fort Leavenworth is going to take me up on a tour of the fort, because I've never really had a full tour. I've been up there.
Yeah, my dad works there still.
Because I told him, I said, every time I go up there, all of these streets have meaning to me, because they're named after people who served in either World War I, the Civil War, or the Korean War, or World War II. And so those names conjure up memories I have of reading about them in history books. And he goes, Neal, you really got to come up, and we're going to take you on a tour. So I really enjoyed meeting so many men and women who are wearing the uniform, and they also love football. It was so cool. One of them had his grandson up there, and he was so proud of him. Marleah, it was just a really fun day in that regard.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Neal, you mentioned on one of our many drives, I think it was this year's camp, that you are like a big history buff, that you started reading, and history is kind of what you really got into. Is that right?
Yeah, it's funny. I hated history in school, in high school and everything else. We had Oklahoma history and all this stuff. And then I had a professor in my freshman year at the University of Oklahoma who read a thing to us. He was the dean of the department, but he was teaching a freshman history class. This is one of those classes with like 300 people in it, in a huge auditorium. And for some reason, he just read something, and it was like, we're being attacked, and these guys are bloodthirsty, and they're cutting our throats. This is in World War I, and how horrible they are, and they're killing our wounded. And I'm like, God, the Germans and Austrians, they were terrible. And then it gets to the thing, and he quotes it. That was a German talking about the Americans and the Australians, that the French and English, they fought squarely, but the Americans and Australians are crazy. They come over and they attack and they kill and it for whatever reason, the fact that I had never thought of Americans as being bloodthirsty or anything like that, it just got my interest, and I went out and got the book and read it, and from then on, I really have enjoyed history, and I don't know why. I do, because I hate everything else in school, math and obviously I can't write it with an actual English punctuated sentence, but Marleah, for some reason, it really resonated with me, and so that's what I have probably 1,000 books at home, and I bet 800 of them are about history.
Yeah, the man you mentioned with his son who passed away in February, when can folks hear that interview? Because I imagine that's going to be really powerful.
Well, it ran at 4:30 on Channel 5, and I suspect that it might run again as part of the story. I suspect it'll run again sometime this weekend, or what. Hopefully it will. But what a nice man. His name's Greg Davis. What a great guy. And I was so thankful that he was willing to talk about his son. When he passed, Channel 5 actually did a story on it because he's a local kid, Blue Valley Southwest High School.
I remember that.
And his son looks so young. And to think that he's the same age as our youngest daughter, it's very, very hard to understand. It's just hard to believe.
Yeah, hard to wrap your head around. I mean, my stomach just sank when you told that story here. So I imagine listening to him is really powerful. We're going to move on here to some on-the-field action from training camp. A lot to get to. I wanted to start with, you can see the kind of key deadline or key dates for the rest of the preseason. Saturday, Chiefs hosting the Lions. Next Thursday, so 1 week from today, hosting the Bears. And then the roster cut deadline, 12 days from now, August 27th. Neal, real quick, let's just kind of run down maybe some top winners and losers from training camp who upped their stock and proved that, they could have a really good season, and who are you maybe disappointed by coming into this camp?
Well, the biggest disappointment for me is Hollywood Brown, that he got hurt on the first play, and that's not on him, but this is a guy who you feel like, if he can stay healthy, is really going to be perfect for this offense. He is finally paired with a coach in Andy Reid and Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator and head coach, who understand offense, and a quarterback who can make all the throws. I just feel like if he can be healthy, he's already not stayed healthy. Yeah. But Marleah, if he's able to play 10, 12, 13 games this year, I think he's a guy that can put up huge numbers, and he will make everybody around him better, including the tight end Travis Kelce, who labored so much last regular season because there was no deep threat, and they were able to pack the defense in. So I think Hollywood Brown, that's a tough thing to have happen. I think Kadarius Toney's been a tremendous disappointment.
Yep, that was going to be
number 19, a guy that we all know how good he can be. We remember the Super Bowl win against the Eagles when his punt return played a huge role in that. And we also remember how bad he could be. The first game last year against the Lions, when the ball bounces off his hands, is a pick six, and you feel like you're salting away a win, and it instead becomes a loss. Then he has a huge mistake, lines up offsides in the loss against the Bengals. So I feel like that he's a guy that had a lot to prove this training camp, and for whatever reason, he physically has been unable to play or practice very much. And so he's a guy, they've got a $2.5 million price tag on him, so there is every reason to give him every opportunity. But at some point, you feel like he's got to show up. And I get the impression, this is just an impression. No coach has said this, but I get the impression that he's a guy that has not been very diligent in his approach. And that may be very unfair to him, but I've kind of heard that. And I know that followed him from New York, and it might not be true, but there's a sense that maybe he's not all in, that he knows how good he is, and he acts like he – look, you played college basketball at a high level at the University of Wyoming. You probably knew players who were really talented who didn't really play that good because they didn't get the most out of their talent. And he kind of reminds me of that, Marleah.
Yeah, I'll add a winner and a loser. I'll echo your loser because I think heading into this camp, what we kept saying was if Kadarius Toney has a really good camp and if he can stay healthy, he could be one of Mahomes' top targets this season. I mean, every coach, Brett Veach, has harped all season on how he's one of the most athletic guys in the room. He was a former first-round draft pick, so we know, his ceiling is really, really high. But one, he didn't perform very well at camp, and two, he wasn't at camp that much. I mean, he went down with an ankle injury, then he came back for a couple days, then he went down with a back injury. And Neal, I don't know if you heard this, but at the podium, the inflection I got when Andy Reid was talking about Tony and his injury seemed kind of frustrated. He was like, you have to be at camp. Hopefully he can get back soon and get more reps, because this is the critical time, especially during installs, for you to prove that, one, I have this playbook down, and two, I can make plays when called upon. So just his lack of participation in camp, again, not his fault. I mean, he was injured. And two, when he was playing, he didn't really perform that well. So I think these next two preseason games are going to be important. And this is a really deep wide receiver room. That said, we did see on Saturday Hollywood Brown going down. Justin Watson is going to step up in his place for now. So, kind of the lower guys climb as well. So who knows? 12 days until roster cuts. I think Kadarius Toney is potentially on the chopping block. I don't know what they're going to do. You mentioned the financial incentive as well being a factor. He can return really well with the new kickoff rules. Just don't know. But certainly did not increase his stock and say, oh, finally, Kadarius is clicking. He didn't do that at camp. Winner, I'll go with Kingsley Suamataia, the rookie out of BYU. Going into this camp, it looked 50-50 between him and Wanya Morris for the left tackle job. If anything, I think leaning towards the incumbent of, okay, Morris has more experience. Kingsley is all but grabbed that job. I think he's secured it, barring anything crazy happening in these next couple of weeks here. He's had a really, really good camp. Neal, he's looked really good during one-on-ones.
It's interesting. I was listening to Tim Grunhard yesterday afternoon on radio, on 810 radio, and I thought it was interesting. He was not as enamored with Kingsley as you and I, and who knows it better.
Yeah, yeah, probably
because he coached offensive line, obviously at the collegiate level with the University of Kansas. Obviously played at Notre Dame as an All-America guard, and then was a center for the Chiefs for, I believe, 10 or 11 years. So it was interesting, kind of an eye-opener for me, because when I've watched him, he's not lost a physical battle. He's had to in fact, they moved Chris Jones out to go one-on-one with him last week, and when Chris tried to bull rush him, he was able to stand his ground. Think about that. There are not very many linemen in the NFL who can stand their ground against Chris Jones.
Rookies,
anybody.
Yeah.
And he's got the physical gift. But then they were talking in his first game against the Jaguars. He did have some issues, I could tell that, but he was up against a really good guy. And so I think you're absolutely right. I think he has grabbed that job. Wanya Morris has been a disappointment.
Yeah.
I mean, forget that he's injured now. He hurt his knee. But before that, I did not think he looked very good. I didn't think I'm ISO'd on him a lot on the blocking the first week or so, because I want to look at that left tackle battle. And he whiffed too many times. He did not make his blocking. He got beat to the inside gap, which you can't get beat inside. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
I think it's important to know, as you said, like, Kingsley didn't win this job once Wanya got hurt. I think the tide was very much in Kingsley's direction.
Well, he was a starter. I was watching because they opened practice by hitting the sled. That's a thing Coach loves.
Yeah.
All right, Coach Reed loves doing that. They do it. They do it for about a minute and a half, and then they push the sled out of the way. It's the last time you see it. But that tells you, because they have the ones, the twos, the threes. You can see. And Kingsley was at first string on the first practice, and it never wavered. He had it from the get-go.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be a lot more. We were still talking about who won this at this point of camp, but real quick, we're going to move on topics here because
you got to mention your guy Carson Steele.
Yeah. Carson Steele had a really, really good preseason game. Number one, he had been in the conversation before that preseason game. I mean, a lot of people are talking about in the media room, or media tent, I guess you could call it in this case, about Andy Reid potentially bringing back a fullback. Obviously, he's not going to reveal his cards to us, but it certainly looked that way at practice. Carson Steele is really valuable in short yardage situations. He was kind of the darling of training camp, undrafted guy out of Ball State and UCLA, and potentially I think could make this roster. I mean, you saw what he had with the 21-yard rush he had in Jacksonville, the sole touchdown of the game. Neal, do you buy the hype that we're going to play a fullback this season, or do you think that might be a little bit premature?
Well, I think I talked about the fact that I had heard the last guy to play fullback for the Kansas City Chiefs talking before camp started about, he goes, I think Coach wants to bring back the fullback. I think he wants to do it. I think that's why they brought this guy in. Why else would you bring the guy in? He's not a traditional, Steele's not a traditional fullback in that he's a pretty good runner and he's got a little shiftiness, but he's not a monster. but he can block. Although I asked him, I said, have you ever been a lead blocker? And he said, no.
Yeah.
No, he has no. Lead blocker is
No better
you got a
time to
running
start.
back and you got a fullback, and the fullback leads you through the hole at power. They call it power. Andy Reid hates running power. So I don't know that he would be doing that anyway. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing. Listen, if Steele fumbles, if he blows up, gets blown up, if something bad happens, he's the darling this week. If something bad happens Saturday, he'll be the GOAT. And that's a negative sense on Sunday. So on Monday, all the media people go, oh yeah, he was a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
But I do think he has a great opportunity to make the team. I think part of it's going to depend on what he can do with special teams.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Andy Reid has said that. We're going to see a lot of him on Saturday.
Guess who missed today?
Who?
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah.
He still continues to have issues.
Yeah, he's been out of a lot of camp with an illness. And Deneric Prince has been getting a lot of second-team reps, too, so I'll be curious to see how that shuffle unfolds. Okay, Lions-Chiefs on Saturday at Arrowhead, 3 o'clock. Neal and I will be there. Andy
Yeah, you have fun in the press box during the game. I'll be down
I'm
shooting
on the field
it.
all game. I
And
got
just
my,
when you come down, don't spill your lobster thermidor.
I thought I brought my press pass. I brought my Chiefs rules. Okay, 3 p.m. Andy Reid said starters are going to play first half. You talked about this at the beginning.
Yeah.
Probably not. He said they were going to play the whole first quarter. In Jacksonville, they played one series. We'll see. Okay, want to get to some college football really quick, Neal. Again, we're kind of running out of time. Spent a lot of time on Chiefs. The first time ever, if not in a very long time, I think it is the first time ever, Mizzou, K-State, Kansas, all ranked in the preseason top 25. I circled that date down there. Sunflower Showdown, October 26th in Manhattan. Get that on your calendars. Neal, we can't go in depth on each of these teams because we are short on time, but maybe a storyline or two you're most excited about for the college football season, which we're talking a lot of Chiefs, but man, this is coming up in just a couple weeks.
Well, we have huge quarterback questions at two of the schools.
Yeah.
Kansas State, where you're replacing a really talented guy who's played a couple of years for you big time at a high level by a super phenom freshman who's not very big. That doesn't mean anything. Kyler Murray's not very big, and nobody could ever hit him because they could never catch him.
Yeah.
Maybe this guy will be that way, but I think quarterback questions at Kansas State, can he execute the passing game? Because that's what everyone's going to do. They're going to stack the box and try to make him beat him throwing the football. If he executes the passing game, they have a chance to be great. If he doesn't, then it's going to be plan B. Then the University of Kansas. I think they've got one really good quarterback, and they may have a couple of guys who are going to end up being really good quarterbacks behind him, but they're inexperienced. And so a lot of it depends on whether or not Jalen Daniels is going to finally be able to play, and can he play a full schedule. So I think that's the big storyline there. At Missouri, I think that they have a great opportunity. They've returned so much on offense that I think they have a great opportunity to be great on offense. I think their defense is going to be really good, although they lost one of their best defensive ends to a knee injury yesterday, tore up his knee or 2 days ago, and so that will affect their rotation. I think the Tigers are on paper the third best team in the league, maybe the second best team. And so can they play up to that? Everything kind of went their way last year. That game against Kansas State, literally 61-yard field goal on the last play of the game. If it goes differently, maybe we think about them differently.
The longest field goal in SEC history is what got him that win. Yeah.
So I think that they have everything's on the plate for them. I think that you've got two teams out of these three that have an opportunity to be in the top 12 and play in the playoffs. But they got to take care of business. I think there's question marks at coordinator at both Kansas State and Kansas. They're replacing very successful offensive coordinators, and everybody goes, oh, things are going great. Well, they always do in the offseason. Let's see what happens when they get in a game. So I do think that there are some very interesting storylines. I can't wait. It's going to be a great college football season.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, too. KU playing at Arrowhead and Children's Mercy Park, so we'll be seeing them in Kansas City. Should be a lot of fun. Okay, last topic real quick. Royals coming up. They're kicking off a 3-game series in Cincinnati tomorrow before they head back to Kansas City for a pretty meaty homestand next week. Reds have won 4 straight going into this one. Kind of had a rough start to the year, but have really picked up speed lately. Royals have a 2-game lead over Boston in the wild card race. Neal, I know we talked about a long way to go until we're talking about solidifying this, but really every win counts here. You're really trying to kind of build that separation. maybe what you're looking forward to most about heading to Cincinnati.
Well, the last 2 series have not gone very well for the Royals.
Yeah.
I mean, they avoid being swept, but that's all they've done.
Yeah.
You don't get to the playoffs by losing 2 out of 3 games in these series. You need to, and I know they're playing good competition. Reds are really interesting in that they run more than any other team in baseball. They got speed. They will stress your defense. They will stress your outfield arms. You better throw to hit your cutoff man, or they will take the extra base. In some regard, they are a little bit like the Royals teams in 14 and 15 that utilize stealing bases and taking the extra base a lot. So it'll be an interesting matchup. Obviously, the Royals have a day off. I think that comes at a good time for them. And let's hope they hit the ground running.
Yeah, it'd be nice to end this road streak on a high note here. Also, if you're curious, the Royals announced their spring training schedule today. This is the time of the year where seasons previous we'd be like, oh, thank God we can talk about next season. I think right now we just want to soak in this season, and we could be potentially talking about a Blue October coming up here, which is very exciting.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Look, the only people who care about spring training schedules are people who vacation there.
Yeah.
Well, and they want to go, okay, let's pick a week when the Royals are at home for a week, or when, whatever. Because a lot of the games they play in the Phoenix area, I know some fans like to go over when the Royals are playing at the Cubs over in I think at Tempe. They have a really great stadium, and they draw really well, and it's a fun trip. So I do think some of the fans enjoy that, but otherwise, I mean, who's thinking about spring training right now? This team has a chance to be good if they can keep healthy, if they can stay healthy. I'm a little worried, Marleah, about the fact that their starting pitching, some of their starting pitchers are hitting the highest number of innings they've ever thrown.
Yeah.
And in baseball, that's a big deal. Maybe it won't be, but with this team. But, arm fatigue, injuries, wear and tear. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this pitching staff, because the starting pitching has been so rock solid. They really have got to have that if they're going to have any hope.
It is an unbelievable time to be a sports fan in Kansas City. You got all 3 Division I college football programs in the area in the top 25. We're talking about the Royals potentially securing that wild card spot. They have the lead, or they have the last spot if the season ended today. Obviously, it's not. Chiefs, good as ever, looking for a three-peat. The Kansas City Current playing extremely well. We have the NWSL Championship in town in November. It is just...
They're playing Saturday night for the championship, or the regional championship of this women's tournament that's a worldwide tournament.
It is just off the charts how exciting it is to be in Kansas City this time of year. We're brushing up at, again, 6 o'clock, so we're going to let you go. We could talk forever. But we will see you on the 6 o'clock news.